Shinobi no Ittoki begin with Ittoki was an ugly, lonely loser who saw a ninja spying on him in the distance and was stalked every day by a mysterious ninja girl called Kusetsu. However, Ittoki decided to run away from her and began parkouring around town, and when Truck-kun came to claim his next isekai victim, Ittoki committed the greatest anime taboo and backflipped over Truck-kun to escape his wrath. The following morning, Kusetsu was back detailing him, but when he got to his locker, he found a love letter inside. For the rest of the day, he continued thinking about the letter until he met the girl. She introduced herself as Satomi, but as Ittoki tried introducing himself, she told him that she had always known him and thought he was the coolest guy for backflipping over a truck. So she asked him to come over because her parents won't be home. Inside her room, Ittoki looked around uncomfortably, but Satomi walked in with a drink for the both of them and began taking off her clothes, causing Ittoki to freak out. She forced him to lay down, begging him to develop plot with her, but as she drew closer to kiss him, our man fumbled the bag and decided to remain an anime protagonist forever. However, as he began looking around the room, hoping she was merely messing around, he looked under the bed and saw two glowing eyes from a ninja suit staring at him. As he fell back, his face was sliced with a knife and 3 ninjas flew into the room. With Satomi looking to slash his throat, a knife flew into the room, exploding into a smoke bomb, pulling Ittoki with her, and as she began kicking off the ninjas, she threw him out the window. Luckily, he fell into a canopy and was rescued by a lady. As the car sped away, Ittoki began screaming, but the lady told him to be silent. She was Rihanna and she worked with Ittoki's mother at the store. After realizing who they were, Ittoki wondered where they were going, so Kozo set a place far away from the city. However, a jeep drove into their way, and as they sped across the road, the jeep spewed dust on their window and laid spikes into their tires, sending them crashing into the walls. As Ittoki woke up, Ria pulled him out of the car and told him to return down the road they came from, as they continued fighting off the opposing force. Ittoki began running away, wondering how the hell he got into this mess. After running all day and night, he realized that he was lost and couldn't find his way back. Suddenly, the lights went out in the streets and the whole city, leaving Ittoki wandering in the darkness. But luckily, he was able to get out of the car. A policeman appeared behind him as Ittoki tried repeating his story. A ninja appeared behind the man and sliced off his throat. Ittoki looked horrified and started backing away, but he bumped into another ninja who smacked him into a wall. With Ittoki gagged and tied up, he closed his eyes, ready to give up. However, Takasada appeared before them smoking a cigarette. When he told the slain police that he would slice his head off, the man swiftly stood up. Apparently, he was one of them. The lights turned back on in the street, and in a flash, Takasada teleported beside Ittoki. The ninjas jumped back in fear, but began charging toward him as he transformed into a ninja of his own. After a few hours, Takasada screamed for Ittoki to wake up, and as he did, he began wondering where they were. Takasada told him that they were at their family home. Inside the home, Ittoki saw everyone bowing to the ground as his mother walked into the room. He looked shocked to see her, and when he called her mother, she told him to call her chief. She looked cold, and the sight of her made Ittoki afraid. Soon, she began telling him that they are a ninja clan from the Aiga village, who have lived in peace for decades by using the store as a front for their activities. However, the Kuga clan, renowned for being the most powerful clan in the world, were looking to destroy their village and annihilate him, since he was next in line to rule. After saying these words, she asked him to become a ninja and to help fight for their village, but Ittoki still would not accept, so Takasada began dragging him outside. While outside, Takasada told him that his choices were to either become a ninja or become sushi for the Kuga clan. As Ittoki screamed his frustration at both options, his uncle wondered if he would rather be sent off to a faraway country until a new successor was chosen. However, Ittoki was afraid of staying away from his mother, so as he began crying, he finally agreed to become the next leader. Meanwhile, in a faraway cabin, Satomi and a strange man realized that Ittoki had been taken away to the Aiga village, so they decided to wait for their next opportunity to eliminate him. The following morning, as Ittoki woke up, he saw Riho waiting outside his room and was relieved knowing he was safe. After a few hours, she showed him a video of a ninja school where they were hoping to send him, but Ittoki was surprised that it looked like a regular school. Rita told him that his exam into the school was only in a few days, causing him to scream in shock. A few days later, Ittoki returned home, and while having dinner with his mother, he decided to ask about the death of his father since he was the former leader of their clan. Yunika thought it was best not digging into the past and told him not to think about it. The following morning, Takasada and Kusetsu arrived to pick him up for his exam. However, Ittoki thought he was not ready and started wondering if he should practice some fire-breathing techniques, so Takasada began teasing him and called his cigarette a fire technique. Kusetsu told him that there were no fire-breathing techniques, but Ittoki thought she was trying to trick him. A few hours later, they arrived at a mall for Ittoki's exam. And as they walked inside, Ittoki thought it looked like a regular store, so Kusetsu told him a secret code for the attendant. And after telling her, she led them to a secret passage. As they went through the passage, they arrived at a room full of mean-looking faces. But a few minutes later, the teacher arrived, telling them that their test was a hide-and-seek challenge, and that they had to find each other within a few minutes. When it was time to begin, Ittoki realized that his partner for the exam was Satomi, who was disguised in a wig. After she walked into the store, the teacher told Ittoki to begin his search for her, and soon a random man began walking towards him with a knife. But Takasada pulled him into an aisle, wringing his neck, and pretended helping him around the store. While Ittoki was afraid that his time was running out, Kusetsu told him that a group of ninjas were trying to kill him, so he suggested running away, but she knew he would fail the exam if he left. As a little girl began walking towards them with a balloon, it burst with a kunai flying through to Ittoki, but Kusetsu blocked it. Satomi smiled, and as Kusetsu looked for her, she became invincible and vanished. Kusetsu told Ittoki to be watchful and began running off to look for her. After a minute, she arrived in a passage and found Satomi waiting for her. As she charged towards her, Kusetsu transformed to a ninja and dodged her attacks, kneeing her ribs and throwing her a kick. Kusetsu went into a new passage looking for her, but Satomi became visible, flying towards her with a slash. However, two other ninjas jumped into the corridor, trapping her inside and allowing Satomi run off. Meanwhile, Ittoki was waiting in fear, and as Satomi began rushing towards him, he sprayed the area and rang the fire alarm, causing everyone to run out. As it began showering, Satomi became visible, but as she drew her knife, she charged towards him but was kicked back by Kusetsu. Immediately, two agents caught her, and as they began taking her away, Ittoki thought of touching her and passing the test, but another agent told him that the test was already over. A few hours later, Takasada told Ittoki that he failed the exam and would have to hide until the following year. But a moment later, after he received a call, he told Ittoki that he's been accepted into the school, leaving him shocked. After a few weeks, Ittoki was ready to leave for the school, and as he traveled through the city, he thought he might never return home again. Soon, they arrived at a train station, and Takasada waved him goodbye. A train stopped before them. And as they traveled in it, Ittoki noticed the beautiful scenery around them. Arriving at the school, Ittoki met a beautiful girl who introduced herself as Ryoko, but after a while, she began leaving with her friends. Ittoki began waving goodbye, but Kusetsu kicked him from behind, telling him to walk. After a few minutes in the school, Ittoki noticed that Kusetsu had vanished from his side, and as he began calling for her, a young group of students bumped into him. They were about knocking out his tooth when a girl hurried to him, pretending to know him and pulled him away from the boys. She thought he was a new student and advised him to avoid the boys like a plague. She introduced herself as Carrie and asked to be his friend as they shook hands. And after a few more minutes, Carrie met Ittoki in class, so he decided to introduce her to Kusetsu. As they tried getting their meal tickets, Harry moved Ittoki's hand to a ninja meal, which turned out to be a little piece of food. Ittoki looked across the dining hall and saw the boys he had earlier met. So Carrie told him that they were from the Kuva clan, the same clan that were trying to kill him. Suddenly, one of the boys stood up from the table, wondering if Ittoki came to fight. His name was Kimura, and as he continued screaming at them, Carrie immediately hurried away. However, another boy told him to be silent. He was Suzaku, and he was the only son of the most powerful member of the Kuva clan. He said that Ittoki's family murdered their leader, so he was looking to get his revenge on him. That evening, Ittoki, Kusetsu, and Carrie arrived at their dormitory, and as they walked inside, Carrie advised Ittoki to avoid Suzaku as much as he could. That night in his room, Kusetsu came in to tell him that she would always protect him from everyone, even if it made him uncomfortable. By the following day, an instructor told the students that they would be learning how to use ninja suits and cores, but Ittoki had never heard those before, so he watched Kusetsu activate her suit before activating his own. When the teacher told them to travel across the island for their prize, the students swiftly ran off, jumping down the mountain. However, Ittoki discovered that he could not move in the suit, but Kusetsu decided to ignore him and began running off. Luckily, Ryoko found him and started moving her hands around his bone until he could move again. She told him that his suit was too tight, and as she pushed him off, he began running, but after a moment, he fell to the ground. Meanwhile, Kusetsu and Suzaku were climbing to a rooftop, but Suzaku suddenly flew towards her and hit her with a kick. But as she blocked, she began falling but luckily caught the wall again. As soon as Suzaku claimed his prize, Kusetsu also claimed her own. Ittoki and Ryoko were running across a bridge when they saw Suzaku running towards Ittoki to attack him. As he jumped, flying towards him with a blow, Kusetsu punched him away, but he began running again. After running across the bridge, Ittoki found a broken core and decided to find who it was, but realized that it was Carrie, who was already beaten up and her prize stolen from her, so Ittoki decided to help her get it back. As a group of bullies cornered another student, Ittoki approached them, demanding for Carrie's prize. When he realized that they were never going to return it, he rushed towards the leader, but he flipped over him, causing Ittoki to bump into the wall. The leader knocked Ittoki around and nearly destroyed his core, but he swiftly rolled away. Ittoki rushed towards him again, and as he grabbed him, the boy pulled his hair and threw him away. He stepped on Ittoki's head, ready to squash it, but their master appeared before them and told them to continue their task. Before long, Ittoki returned the prize to Carrie as he was able to steal it back before getting thrown away, and as he helped her to the bridge, they found Ryoko returning. Ittoki asked her to help Carrie return and soon hurried to finish his task. However, by the time he arrived, he found the master eating what was left of the prizes. The next day, as Ittoki went to get his meal card, a group of bullies threatened to beat him up, but Kyusetsu decided to stay by his side for support. As they tried eating, Carrie and Ryoko joined them at the table. A week later in class, the teacher told the students about a test they had to take improving their abilities as a ninja, but Ittoki didn't know what she was talking about. So after the class, he asked Ryoko to teach him how to use weapons, as he thought he would have to defend himself in battle. However, Carrie walked in on the and told him that the test was to sneak into her office and steal the answers from her vault. That afternoon, while Ryoko was showing Ittoki a ninja device, she began telling him about her dream to continue as a ninja forever, but her father wanted her to become a dutiful wife after leaving the school. This made her sad, and she thought about never returning home again. In Ittoki's room, later at night, he wondered why he was chosen to be the next leader of his clan, as he thought he didn't deserve to be in the position. So Kyusetsu told him that the clan was only concerned about passing on leadership to whoever was next, and it didn't matter if the leader couldn't change his own diaper. The following day, while Ittoki and his friends were plotting a way to break into the teacher's office, two boys asked to join their parade. Having seen Ittoki take on the bullies during their task, they thought he was the perfect role model, so Ittoki decided to accept them into the group. At school that night, Ittoki and his friends snuck through the corridor, heading for the teacher's office. Ryoko gave him a drone to spy at her, and as he threw it, it flew into the office, looking at the vault and keys. But as it returned, it smashed into a glass, alerting the teacher. Immediately, the students began flying out of the window, but Ittoki's hook came off and he began falling but was caught midair and pulled up before the teacher saw him. When the teacher began chasing Carrie, she threw a smoke bomb and ran off, screaming in fear. Inside the office, Ittoki and Ryoko discovered that the key to the safe had vanished. And before long, a group of bullies began beating up Ittoki's friend, so Kyusetsu hurried to save him. Afraid of getting caught by the teacher, Ryoko decided to hack into the safe and was finally able to steal the answers. However, the following day in class, as they prepared to take the test, they discovered that the answers were totally false, and they were basically screwed. After the test, Himura and his gang laughed at them, because they had switched the answers in the vault before they arrived. The next day, Ittoki and his friends began cleaning the school as a punishment for failing the test, but Kyusetsu suddenly pulled him aside and told him that there was a mole among them who was working with Suzaku and his friends and had switched the answers in the vault to screw them up. At these words, Ittoki began staring at everyone's faces in shock. The following day in class, the teacher told them about their exam in the coming weeks, which were often extreme activities that could lead to their deaths. Ittoki realized what her words meant, and immediately became afraid. So after the class, he wondered if he could skip the exam, since more than half the students were trying to eliminate him. But Ryoko told him that he would get kicked out of the school for being a disgusting weakling. While walking through the corridor, Ittoki and Kyusetsu came across Suzaku, who promised to kill him in the exam, but they merely stared at him as he walked away. In the dormitory that night, when his friends decided to create a plan for their exam, Ittoki told them that he was going to bed. With a spy in their midst, all their plans would basically go up in smoke. However, as Ittoki and Kyusetsu began to leave, Carrie hurried to him and gave him a special mask that would change his face whenever he wanted. She thought he would need it in the exam and forced it into his hand even after he declined it. When Ittoki and Kyusetsu came into his room, she told him that she would annihilate Suzaku during the exam. But Ittoki was worried that it would be too dangerous for her. However, when she looked determined to carry out her duty, reminding him that she was his protector, he swiftly left the room. That night, while walking through the street, Ittoki came across the master and was invited for tea. As they drank on a rooftop, the master began telling him about his father. He had met him several years ago and thought Ittoki was just like him. However, Ittoki was in no mood for a conversation, so he thanked him for the tea and left. The following day, while Ittoki was looking for Kyusetsu, she jumped out of the tree before him and told him to steal the core from her suit. As he lunged at her, she dodged him, but he lunged again and got smacked to the ground. Kusetsu thought he had no skill and dared him to steal the core from her, since he was too much of a bandit to take it. So he started running away as Kusetsu had instructed him to do. After their practice, Kusetsu showed Ittoki a map explaining their plans for the exam and drawing a circle around it. When she was done, she squeezed the paper and threw it in the trash before pulling it outside. When the day arrived, the students waited in old abandoned buildings until a great sound went off, signaling the start of the exam. Kusetsu began running out, and soon a group of Kuba ninjas arrived looking for Ittoki. They kicked the door in, but as they rushed inside, they were hit by a powerful gas and began to pass out. Ittoki and Kusetsu had set the trap and were pleased that their plans were falling into place. With only one survivor left, Ittoki confronted him and realized that he was the spy in their group who had led them here through the map Kusetsu threw out. However, he soon began apologizing, but now he wasn't sure what to do as he was beginning to feel sorry for him. After a few minutes, Himari arrived looking for Ittoki, but the boy tried sneaking up on him. As he lunged for his hand, he missed and was elbowed to the ground, narrowly dodging getting stabbed. When he stood up, the mask on his face cracked, revealing he was Ittoki, disguised as the boy. However, Himura began smiling, and as he took off his own mask, he revealed he was Suzaku all along. Meanwhile, Kusetsu found Suzaku alone by himself, but he also began taking off his mask and revealed he was Himura. Apparently, they had switched places while pretending to be each other, and were hoping to keep Kusetsu away from Suzaku. Kuba ninjas attacked her, but she kicked and blocked them away before drawing power from her core and slashing them off. Himura realized that they couldn't beat her, so he detonated a bomb, blowing up everyone. At the same time Ittoki was running from Suzaku, he was kicked to the floor and flung backwards. As Ittoki threw a kunai at him, he caught it and nailed him in the leg, wounding him. He pulled him up and punched his face, but he began running again. So Suzaku ran after him, hungry for revenge, and narrowly missed stabbing him as Ittoki fell through the trees and continued running. Before long, he was kicked to the ground and a kunai was thrown in his back before the deranged youth drew his knife and flew to stab him. But he missed as Ittoki rolled away, determined to leave. He thought his death would awaken more desire for revenge and soon began running again. However, the nutcase was certain that killing Ittoki would bring him some weird peace, and his blood would make for some good stew, so he ran after him. Ittoki was breathless as he ran, afraid and drained, but as Suzaku jumped on him, he created smoke and vanished. Drums began flying towards him, but he blocked them all. However, Ittoki took advantage of his distraction and swiftly slashed his core. With his suit having lost its power, Suzaku realized that it was too late for him to fight back. But Ittoki had no thought of killing him, and as a blaring sound went off announcing the end of the exam, Ittoki passed out on the ground. Several days later, he woke up in a hospital with his friends all staring at him, happy to see him alive. But Kusetsu immediately passed out from exhaustion, having waited at his bed all day and night. A few weeks later, they visited Ittoki's family home for the holiday, and Ittoki showed Ryoko and Kari to a room where they could stay. However, as soon as he left, Kari began snooping around the house looking to find their secret weapons before summoning a little bird. A moment later, the bird arrived in Suzaku's home, revealing a secret message from Kari about Ittoki's home. Meanwhile, Ittoki and his family arrived in a hospital to see Raya's husband, who had been unconscious for several years after an accident. He had worked for Ittoki's mother as a ninja in their clan, and she felt responsible for his current state. That evening, Ittoki and his mother cleared a grave site. This was where his father was buried, and they came here every year in honor of his memory. And although Ittoki could hardly remember him, he thought that he must have been a good man since everyone spoke so kindly of him. Soon Ittoki's mother began telling him about his father, who was murdered while trying to protect the village from invaders. She thought that the Kuva clan were responsible and hoped that Ittoki would not be killed like his father. The following day, Ittoki and his friends arrived at the store to buy items for the family home. However, he soon discovered that everyone was a ninja for the clan. Later that day, as they arrived at the river, hoping to catch some fish, Ittoki saw the girls in stunning outfits and began stuttering at the sight of them. Kusetsu walked into the water, and as she spotted a fish, she threw it right into Ittoki's bucket. And in a few minutes, they all began fishing. While fishing, Kari began telling Ittoki about her clan, and that they were considered irrelevant by other clans since there were only a few of them left and without a village of their own. When Ittoki noticed that she was beginning to look sad, he encouraged her to feel happy about herself. After all, he wasn't half the ninja she was. Soon, they all arrived at the family home with their buckets filled up, and as they moved around with food preparing for a feast, Takasada appeared behind Ittoki. He had been away for some time and was happy to return home again, and since it was Ittoki's first time at the feast, he decided to tell him how it started. After his father died, his mother had made the hard decision of becoming the clan's new leader. Her decision saved the village from breaking apart, and now everyone loved her and would die for her in battle. He hoped Ittoki would learn from her and make babies with Kusetsu. That evening, as they enjoyed the feast, Takasada began singing, having drunk too much, so Kusetsu smacked his head, putting him straight to sleep. Ittoki and Yumika began to leave the room for a conversation elsewhere, so Carrie decided to eavesdrop on them. However, a man stopped her and began talking about Ittoki, and that he thought she was the greatest saint in the world after Pope Francis, and somehow, his words made her repent from her sins. Inside the room, Yumika began telling Ittoki all their secrets and why they were the most powerful ninja clan in the world. She wondered if he was ready to become the greatest ninja of them all, so he told her that he was. A week later, Kozo hurried to tell Ittoki and his friends that the academy was closed down as a lot of students were mysteriously vanishing. Later that day, they were informed about a ninja committee meeting, which only happened once in several decades to decide the future of every clan. And by the following day, Yumika began to leave for the meeting, promising to return as soon as it was over. At the meeting, Yumika, Takasada, and Kozo met the leaders of other clans, and as Hayato, a police of the committee, began, they soon discovered that a few clan leaders were missing from the meeting. They were clans who supported Yumika and her village, and as she began wondering what happened to them, she thought the Kuga clan were responsible for their disappearance. Hayato said that the Kuga clan were looking to start a war by annihilating every ninja clan in the world and stealing their resources for themselves. And since the committee meetings were meant to arrest leaders causing chaos, he decided to arrest the clan's leader himself. The other clans stood in support of his arrest, but a man suddenly walked into the room, introducing himself as Genji, another police of the committee, and began accusing Yumika of eliminating the slain Kuga leader. He showed a video of the murder, and concluded that a member of her clan committed the atrocity, immediately demanding for her arrest, but Takasada stood in his way, ready to slay him in that instant. However, Yumika stopped him and began to follow them. That evening, after Ittoki was informed about her arrest, he thought he was better off taking her place, and by the following day, with the villagers all gathered together, Ittoki declared himself as their new leader. However, the next day, while they were waiting for news on Yumika, Takasada showed up at the door and summoned Ittoki and Kusetsu for a private meeting. Agato had been killed, and Genji, who arrested Yumika at the meeting and worked for the Kuga clan, was threatening to annihilate her, as the Kuga clan were determined to discover their secrets. At a meeting later that day, the villagers suggested rescuing Yumika before she was executed, but others were afraid of riling the committee. Takasada thought the committee was **** for taking sides with the Kuga clan and offered to slay them all in their sleep, but the others were afraid of starting a war. They all began staring at Ittoki, waiting to hear his decision. However, when he continued staring like a lost, confused boy trapped in the woods, Kusetsu flew at him with a knife. Having seen enough of his stupidity, she thought that annihilating him would be better for everyone. After all, he was good for nothing. Since Yumika had adopted her when she was a little girl and raised her like her own daughter, she had become her only family. Yusa Kusetsu was determined to save her from those fuckers and was looking to make the decision herself if Ittoki was too soft for it. However, Ittoki decided to man up, and as she released him, he began coughing and soon agreed to rescue Yumika. It was a decision that would cast them into a war with the committee. Meanwhile, in the Kuga clan base, Suzaku arrived into the office of the Kuga leader, having been informed by Carrie on the plans to rescue Yumika from her cell. He thought that this was their perfect opportunity to annihilate everyone in the village, as Kusetsu and Takasada were both away for the rescue, and swiftly declared his desire to lead the raid. In Ittoki's home, Carrie told him about news in the city on a terrorist attack that was making everyone run home, but they had no idea what it meant. Right then, Kozo hurried in, telling them that the Kuga clan were coming to eliminate everyone in the village, and that the news around the city was a mere diversion from the nearing attack. So a moment later, Ria opened a secret door in the room that would momentarily keep them safe, and with Kusetsu gone, Ittoki looked to be in the soup. Meanwhile, Kusetsu and Takasada arrived at the prison to rescue Yumika, and after pretending to lose their way, Kusetsu swiftly put the security to sleep. Immediately, they switched into their ninja suits and ran through the prison before Kusetsu kicked down the window. She threw a smoke bomb as the prison guards charged at them, and the both of them blew past the security, blocking their attacks and knocking them to the ground. Soon they arrive at Yumika's cell, and after telling her that Ittoki ordered for her rescue, Kusetsu kicked down the door. However, just as they hurried outside, they came across the scumbag and a new set of security. Takasada told Kusetsu to rescue Yumika, so she caused a smoke bomb and vanished with the distraction as Takasada impaled the men before they could run after them. Meanwhile, in Ittoki's village, a Nika ninja tried stabbing a robot, but another came flying at him as he narrowly dodged and watched it jump out of sight. As another fighter faced off with two bots, one jumped behind him and impaled his knee, but he stabbed it. Another flew at him with a kunai, but it stopped and began jumping back into the darkness before it soon killed the last one. In Ittoki's home, they discovered that the Kuva clan were fighting the Iga ninjas with robots. The enemies were endless, and Ria thought it was only a matter of time before the robots. Ittoki suggested withdrawing everyone into the family home, but Ria thought that would be shooting themselves in the foot. As they began wondering why the robots weren't attacking with all their forces, Carrie asked to see one of the robots. A moment later, Soon laid a robot on the floor before them, and Ryoko began unscrewing it. When she was done, she discovered that the bots were running on low battery and could only function for half an hour. Ittoki realized that blowing up the *** King Chargers was the only way to win the battle. As soon as Ria picked up the location for the Chargers, he decided to take the risk of destroying them. Ryoko decided to follow him since her father created the robots. Carrie, however, told them that she wasn't going with them since she had to play spy for Suzaku. Meanwhile, at the prison, Takasada had slain all the security and was looking to slay Genji. But another team of the committee arrived, led by a new official, Shiani. She had worked with Hayato before his murder and discovered that Genji slayed him. She commanded her team to arrest him, but as two of the men flew at him, he caught their hands mid-air, determined not to get caught. However, Takasada grabbed him from behind and put his ass to sleep before walking away. At the same time, Kusetsu and Yumika arrived on a mountain and discovered that the village was under attack by the Kuva clan. When Kusetsu thought that they were better off staying away, Yumika told her that she wished to fight for the village. Meanwhile, inside the village, Ittoki and Ryoko found the Chargers, and Ittoki suggested blowing them up in that instant. With the majority of the Kuva forces away at the moment, he thought that this was their only chance at destroying these sons of asterisks, so Ryoko gave him the bombs she made that were sure to blow everything up to smithereens. They thought about putting the bombs on the Chargers, but now wonder how they would get close enough before getting spotted, so Ryoko decided to show him a bomb that would shut down the robots for a few seconds. When they were ready, Ittoki rushed out of the bush towards the machines, and Ryoko threw up the bomb, causing the bots to freeze in that instant. Before long, Ittoki was kicked back by Suzaku, who was looking to destroy him like in the exam. Immediately, Ittoki threw a disc into the air, and Ryoko took Suzaku down as he began running again, looking to put the bomb on the charger. However, the robots all came alive and caught him immediately, along with Ryoko. One machine took the bomb from him, and suddenly began running towards the charger, but Himura ran after him, and as he tackled him to the ground, he discovered that the bomb was already on it. Utilizing his chance, Ittoki directed the disc, smashing into the bomb and blowing up everything in its path. A moment later, Ryoko helped Ittoki to his feet, and as they tried leaving, he returned to the person lying on the ground, and as her mask broke, they discovered that she was as her way of helping them for her betrayal. As the bots began coming alive, Ittoki carried Carrie in his arms and began running off. In Ittoki's home, Yumika and Kusetsu arrived, happy to see everyone safe. But suddenly, Kusetsu began moving around and screaming like she was in a terrible pain. Before long, she held a kunai to Yumika's throat, threatening to kill her and demanding to know where their secret core was hidden. She led Yumika into a room and shoved her to the floor. As her eyes glowed like she was possessed by some evil spirit, she pointed her kunai at Yumika, but she stood bravely before her and took a slash to the face. However, she walked closer to her, putting the kunai aside and taking off Kusetsu's mask to realize that she was biting hard on her lip, fighting to be free from the control over her mind. Yumika thought something strange was happening to her, but everyone thought she was another spy and betrayer for the Kuba clan. As Yumika held her close, Kusetsu began screaming again, fighting to regain control over her mind and trying to call her mother. Suddenly, she fell and Yumika hurried to her, but as she tried waking her up, Kusetsu stabbed her with the kunai and killed her on the spot. Ittoki and his friends arrived, and as he ran through the house screaming for his mother, he found her lying on the floor and hurried to her, but was too late. Immediately, Kozo took down Kusetsu, wondering why she killed Yumika, but the girl couldn't answer as she didn't know what came over her. Takasada ran in, shocked to find Yumika dead, and as he watched Ittoki cry over his mother, he thought his worst fear had come to pass. The next day, Ri had told Ittoki that he must take on the full responsibility of being the clan's leader. With Yumika dead, the village were waiting for his decision on their war with the Kuga clan. However, as Hoki could only remember how his mother had died, how the villagers had tried to save her, and how this frustration had caused him to scream at Takasada. That evening, with everyone gathered together, Ittoki put his thumb in the contract and became the true leader of the clan. However, he wasn't happy, and as the villagers began demanding for retaliation on the Kuga clan, he merely stared at them. One villager thought Kusetsu was the greatest betrayer in the world for killing Yumika and deserved to have her head chopped off like a fish, but Ittoki was terrified at the mere thought of it. She had been his protector for several years and had saved his ass from trouble more times than he could remember. The villagers began suggesting an all-out war on the Kuba clan and annihilating them like a sack of ***. But Ittoki was too chicken to decide, so he asked for another meeting after his mother was buried. A few days later, Ryoko and Carrie told him that they were returning home, but as Ittoki thought of not seeing them again, he knew that he would be very lonely. The following day, as they were leaving, Ryoko told him to protect Kyusetsu, as she was convinced that some weird experiment took place in her mind. However, Ittoki wasn't certain that he could save her from her fate. As they left, Takasada summoned Ittoki inside and led him into a separate house where he found Kyusetsu tied up. Takasada told him that she had been trying to annihilate herself since she regained control of her mind. He decided to ask her what she remembered, but even she couldn't remember anything that happened. She had heard a terrible noise inside her head that caused her to lose control, but she thought it was a dream. As she began crying, she asked Ittoki to eliminate her. But Takasada told her that she was important to them. Soon, he began telling her that her father was the leader of the Kuba clan, and that she was hypnotized when she was a little girl. Before getting abandoned on the street, the Kuba leader had hoped to spy on the Iga village by having Yumika adopt her, and had waited for several years before killing her. Kyusetsu wondered why she wasn't kicked out all those years ago, so Takasada told her that Yumika loved her as her own daughter. At these words, Kyusetsu began crying and blamed herself for Yumika's death, but Takasada thought that someone else may have snuck into the room and murdered her. As she continued crying, Ittoki held her close to him. A few days later, the villagers attended Yumika's burial, and later that night, Ittoki was alone as he continued staring at her photograph. Suzuku appeared behind him and began walking to her shrine. As he paid his last respects, he wondered if Ittoki finally understood his grief, and as he began walking away, he called him a chicken, so Ittoki punched his face. But he lunged at him and they crashed through the window. Ittoki wondered why he had a crazy obsession for revenge, since even he wasn't desiring revenge for his mother's death. But Suzaku only cared to see their village crumble to dust and swiftly pushed him off, telling him that his bitter and rotten soul was beyond redemption. The next day, the villagers told Ittoki about a letter from the Kuba clan, who were demanding for their secret core. They wanted Ittoki to grant their request for war, but he still wouldn't, and asked for a few more days to consider his decision. That night, he returned to his mother's shrine, sad and confused, wondering if he was the person for the job, as he was caught between the difficult choice of protecting the village and sending them off to war. After a few days, Ittoki arrived for another meeting with the clan, and informed them that he would be passing their secret core to the Kuba clan, and would demand for half their resources in return. However, the villagers thought that he had lost his ******ing mind and needed a long nap. But Ittoki told them that his decision was the only way to protect the village and the people, and was looking to stick with it. He threatened to kick out everyone that weren't in support and began walking away. But after a few days, Shinny told him that the Kuba clan were unwilling to share their own resources and were looking to attack the village again for the core. Meanwhile, Carrie arrived at Ryoko's home to find it burned to the ground by the Kuba clan. Both their villages had been incinerated and Carrie had nowhere else to go. She found Ryoko, who was working on a bomb to blow up the fucking Kuba clan, but Carrie thought that she was better off settling down and finding a husband. However, she soon began crying, sad to be only one left in her village. With nothing more to lose, Carrie decided to tell her that she had been spying for the Kuba clan and aided their attack on the Iga village. She thought that she was the greatest sinner in the world and also began crying. However, Ryoko thought that she was worth being redeemed, and decided to embrace her. In Ittoki's village, the clan demanded for his resignation, calling him a baby who couldn't pick his own nose. But he was determined to be alpha male and called his position his birthright. That night, the clan gathered outside, ready to abduct Ittoki and forcefully kick him out. But while they were waiting for Kozo's orders, Ria began running towards Ittoki's room and soon realized that it was empty. As she started reading the paper on his desk, Kozo entered the room, wondering why she left her position outside. And in that moment, he realized that she killed Yumika and intended to end Ittoki as well. Immediately, she tried slashing at him, but he blocked and smacked her in the face. Ittoki had earlier told him about a spy in their clan who had murdered Yumika and wanted Kyusetsu taking responsibility for her murder. So in an attempt to discover the spy, he had decided to play the role of a rogue king. Kozo began wondering why Ri had decided to betray her own village, so she told him that the Kuba leader had promised to awaken her husband with a great sorcery and immediately ended herself. At the same time, Ittoki, Kyusetsu, and Takasada began walking to the Kuba base. Since the Kuba clan were heading to destroy their own village, they hoped to destroy theirs in return. However, Ittoki wanted to be the sacrificial lamb and asked Takasada and Kyusetsu to return to the village, but they wouldn't listen to him. They thought that they would also make some fine mutton and were determined to support him. Inside the Kuga base, a receptionist pressed a buzzer as they walked in, alerting the security, but Ittoki merely asked to speak with the Kuga leader. Soon, they were surrounded by robots and Kusetsu flew into the air, kicking the machines, and Ittoki slashed them. As a bomb went off, Ryoko appeared in the smoke, knocking down a bot, and Carrie slashed another. They came to support him and were looking to bring down the Kuga clan. So Carrie decided to apologize for spying on his village and swiftly ran off. Ryoko punched, then kicked off the enemies, and as two flew at her, Carrie kicked them back, allowing Ittoki and his clan to run up the stairs. Soon, they came across 3 enemies and 100 robots jumped in their way, so Ittoki drew the power from his suit and flashed through them, slaying them in an instant. However, he fell from exhaustion as the core burned up his strength. But Takasada got in the way, causing Kusetsu to create smoke and rescue him. Swiftly, Takasada pulled them towards him and knocked them off before running through the smoke. As Ittoki and Kusetsu walked towards the office, they found Himura and a man waiting for them. Kusetsu decided to fight them herself, but Suzaku appeared behind them with a flame, and as he burned the ground, flames formed a wall, allowing Ittoki and Kusetsu to run off. Soon, they met the Kuga leader Kidu, and Ittoki asked him to stay off their property in exchange for his core, but he thought that wasn't enough. He wanted the entire world to himself and desired to see all ninja villages burned to ashes. Since Ittoki had no intent of killing him, he suggested waiting for his backup forces to arrive. However, Ittoki began wondering why he caused his mom to be murdered,